Thousands of alien spectators packed the tiered coliseum, their glowing, multi-hued skin casting a prismatic glow across the stands. On the combat floor below, warriors from across the galaxy strode with confidence, their cutting-edge armor bristling with weapons that hummed with latent energy. But in one corner of the staging area, laughter erupted, boisterous and derisive. It spilled across the arena like a wave of contempt. Standing at the source of the laughter was Alex Carter, the lone human participant in the tournament of proving. He adjusted his helmet, his grin sharp and unbothered. Alex was clad in what appeared to be an antiquated suit of medieval plate armor. Its dull steel gleamed faintly, as if freshly polished, and the joints emitted an audible creak every time he moved. Unlike the shimmering force fields and powered servos of the aliens' combat gear, Alex's armor looked almost quaint. A Creac warlord towered over him, his 6 spiked arms crossed in disbelief. Haldrex, known as the Breaker of Stars, was a fearsome warrior who had once crushed an entire planetary rebellion single-handedly. His crimson-scaled face split into a grin of jagged teeth. This is the technology of Earth, Haldrex bellowed, gesturing at Alex's armor with one of his claws. Tell me, human, did you dig this relic from the ruins of some ancient museum? Or perhaps Earth ran out of resources, and you had to raid your history books for scraps of metal? The laughter swelled, joined by warriors from half a dozen other species. A Vectrian, a sleek, insectoid being with a shimmering silver exoskeleton, clicked its mandibles in amusement. It doesn't even have energy shielding. I doubt it could withstand a stiff breeze. Alex tightened a strap on his gauntlet with calm precision, letting the jeers bounce off him like raindrops. I know, he said, raising his voice just enough to cut through the laughter. I've always heard you folks love a good spectacle. Guess it's my lucky day. The comment earned him a renewed chorus of laughter, but Haldrex's serpentine eyes narrowed. You're either very brave or very foolish, human. But no matter. I'll be sure to scrape whatever's left of you from my plasma cannons. Consider it a lesson, do not waste the galaxy's time. Alex took a step forward into the blinding light of the arena. His grin didn't falter as he turned to the cheering, jeering crowd and gave a mock bow, the creaking of his armor loud enough to echo. Haldrex followed him, his own armor a masterpiece of Creac engineering, brimming with glowing green veins of energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. 6 arms adorned with weapons flexed as he stepped into the combat zone, towering over Alex like a living monument to war. The Tournament of Proving was a centuries-old tradition, designed as both a demonstration of strength and a diplomatic gesture between species. Each participant represented their homeworld, and the contest was a stage to show off the latest advancements in weaponry, tactics, and technology. Alex had arrived on Seraxis Prime as Earth's representative, though his selection had been less an honor and more a last-ditch necessity. Earth's military delegation had withdrawn at the 11th hour due to internal political conflicts, leaving the diplomatic corps scrambling for a replacement. Alex, a part-time engineer and full-time troublemaker, had volunteered without hesitation. Diplomacy through demonstration, he'd told the skeptical Earth Council. We'll show them what humans are made of. What he hadn't mentioned was that he had no intention of using the standard-issue powered exosuit humanity had sent him. Instead, he'd packed something he'd been working on for years in his workshop, a suit of armor that looked like it belonged on a medieval knight, but with a few tricks up its sleeve. The arena's lights dimmed, and a deep, resonant chime signaled the start of the duel. Haldrex wasted no time. One of his arms raised a plasma cannon, and with a hiss and a whine, a bolt of searing energy shot toward Alex, bright as a miniature sun. The crowd roared, already anticipating the human's fiery demise. The plasma struck Alex square in the chest, exploding in a burst of light and heat, but when the glow faded, Alex was still standing. His armor was untouched, save for a faint, reddish glow on his chest plate where the bolt had hit. The arena fell into stunned silence. Haldrex froze mid-step, all 6 of his eyes blinking in confusion. What trickery is this? Alex tapped his chest plate with a gauntleted hand, the metallic clang echoing across the arena. It's not trickery, he said. Just good old-fashioned physics. Steel's great at spreading out heat. Add a couple of ceramic layers to absorb energy, and you've got yourself a plasma-resistant suit. The warlord's growl was low and menacing. Let's see how your relic holds up against a real attack. He raised all 6 arms, plasma cannons firing in unison. The arena lit up as a storm of energy bolts rained down on Alex, their combined heat enough to melt most known metals. Yet when the barrage ended, Alex stood exactly where he had started. His armor was still intact, save for a few scorch marks. He dusted himself off with exaggerated care, eliciting murmurs of disbelief from the crowd. "Is that all?" Alex asked, his voice carrying just enough mockery to cut deep. Haldrex's fury boiled over. He charged forward, his clawed arms swinging in a blur of motion. Alex sidestepped the first blow, deflecting the second with his shield. Sparks flew as claw met metal, but the human held his ground. When the match ended, Alex stood victorious. Haldrex's armor was battered, his plasma cannons smoking and inert. Meanwhile, Alex's primitive suit had endured everything thrown at it without so much as a dent. The crowd, once derisive, now buzzed with astonishment. Warriors from other species crowded around Alex as he exited the arena, their skepticism replaced by curiosity. A crystalline Rylock, its body refracting the arena lights into a rainbow of colors, approached him with spindly grace. This armor of yours," it said, its voice like chiming glass. "It has no energy shielding, no adaptive fields." "Nope," Alex said, pulling off his helmet and wiping sweat from his brow. "No shields, no adaptive fields, no gimmicks, just old-school metallurgy and a lot of trial and error." The Vectrian who had mocked him earlier clicked its mandibles nervously. "But how can it possibly outperform our hyperalloy composites?" Alex shrugged. "It's not about how advanced something is. It's about how well it works. Your fancy composites are great for deflecting physical projectiles, but they're terrible at dissipating heat. My armor's built to ignore the rules you're all playing by." The explanation only deepened the aliens' confusion. To them, Alex's armor was an enigma, a relic of an ancient era that somehow defied the might of modern technology. It was as if someone had brought a stone slingshot to a galactic war and won. As the tournament continued, Alex's armor became the center of attention. Challenger after challenger stepped forward, wielding weapons designed to obliterate even the most advanced defenses. Plasma bolts, kinetic hammers, molecular disintegrators all failed against the human's seemingly archaic suit. Each victory turned the crowd's initial laughter into cheers of admiration. But not everyone was impressed. In the shadows of the tournament, a faction of alien warriors began to plot. For them, Alex was not a hero but a threatened disruptor whose success challenged the galaxy's status quo. And they weren't about to let him walk away unchallenged. The arena's glow dimmed as the day's matches came to an end. Alex walked through the staging area, his armor clinking softly with each step. Warriors who had once mocked him now gave him wide berths or nodded in silent acknowledgement. He didn't let it go to his head. He was here to represent humanity, not bask in glory. Still, a small grin tugged at his lips. The day had gone better than expected. As Alex approached his makeshift workspace, he saw a familiar figure waiting for him. Haldrex stood with his arms crossed, his bruised pride evident in his glare. The Creac warlord hadn't spoken a word since his defeat, but now his voice rumbled low and steady. "Human, we are not finished." Alex chuckled as he set his helmet down. "You're welcome to try again tomorrow. I've got time." Haldrex stepped closer, looming over Alex with his towering frame. "You mistake my intent. You've earned my respect today, but respect does not erase suspicion. That armor of yours, it defies logic. No human should have been able to withstand what you did. Either you are lying about its simplicity, or you're hiding something more dangerous." Alex leaned against a workbench, crossing his arms. "You think I cheated?" "I think you're clever," Haldrex said, his voice dripping with mistrust. "Too clever. And I am not the only one who believes this." The next day brought more challenges, and Alex's armor continued to confound and impress. Each new adversary brought increasingly sophisticated weapons, yet none could pierce his primitive defense. Warriors who had once scoffed now analyzed his every move, searching for weaknesses in his suit. The audience, captivated by Alex's success, began to chant his name during matches. But in the shadows, a faction of discontent was brewing. One evening, as Alex was inspecting the joints on his gauntlet, a Zaltharan warrior named Creac approached him. The Zaltharans were known for their sharp intellect and sharper weapons, and Creac was one of their most cunning strategists. His sleek black armor glimmered under the workshop's lights, and his voice was cold and measured. "You've caused quite a stir," human Creac said, circling Alex's workbench. "Your victories have made you a curiosity." Alex didn't look up from his work. "Glad to hear I'm keeping things interesting." Creac's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smirk. "Interesting, yes, but also problematic. You've embarrassed some of the galaxy's finest warriors, and when warriors are embarrassed, they seek retribution." Alex tightened a bolt on his armor, feigning nonchalance. "Let me guess, you're here to challenge me to a duel." "Not just any duel," Creac said, his tone dripping with menace. "No plasma cannons, no disintegrators, just you and me, blade to blade. Let's see how your relic fares when it's stripped of its tricks." Alex straightened and met Creac's gaze. The challenge was a trap, he could see it in the Zaltharan's calculating eyes. But he couldn't back down, not now, not after everything he'd proven. "All right," Alex said. "Name the time and place." The duel was held in a smaller, private arena. The crowd, though smaller than the one for the main tournament, was no less eager to see the match. Creac stood in the center, twin curved blades glinting in his hands. The weapons were made of a Zaltharan alloy known for its molecular sharpness, capable of slicing through most known metals. Alex stepped into the ring, his longsword resting casually on his shoulder. The sword, like his armor, was handmade, a single slab of tempered steel sharpened to a gleaming edge. It looked almost comically simple next to Creac's weapons, but Alex had learned long ago that appearances meant nothing. The duel began with a sharp chime, and Creac struck first. His blades moved in a blur, arcs of silver cutting through the air. Alex sidestepped the first strike, his armor deflecting the second with a loud clang. Sparks flew as the Zaltharan's blades met steel, but Alex stood his ground. Creac pressed the attack, his movements fast and precise. Yet no matter how hard he struck, his blades couldn't penetrate Alex's armor. With each failed attempt, his frustration grew. The audience murmured, their awe for Alex deepening as the human dodged and deflected with almost casual ease. Finally, Alex saw his opening. Creac overextended on a swing, leaving his guard momentarily down. Alex moved swiftly, his longsword slicing through the air in a clean, calculated arc. The blow didn't strike Creac directly, it didn't need to. Instead, Alex's blade connected with Creac's right weapon, shattering it into fragments. The Zaltharan froze, staring at the broken hilt in disbelief. Before he could react, Alex disarmed his remaining blade with a quick twist of his wrist and leveled his sword at Creac's chest. "Looks like your superior tech doesn't hold up so well against a bit of craftsmanship," Alex said. The crowd erupted into cheers, but Creac could only glare, his pride in tatters. By now, Alex's armor had become the centerpiece of the tournament. Delegations from other species began approaching him, their engineers eager to study his design. They poked and prodded, running scanners over the metal and analyzing its composition. "It's just steel," one Rylock technician said, baffled. "Steel and ceramics. This shouldn't work." "Exactly," Alex replied with a grin. "But it does. You're all so focused on shields and hyperalloys that you've forgotten how to keep things simple." The explanation did little to soothe the engineer's confusion, but it earned Alex a new level of respect among the warriors. To them, he was no longer just a curiosity, he was a revelation. His victories challenged everything they thought they knew about combat, forcing them to reevaluate their assumptions about technology and ingenuity. But not everyone admired Alex's success. Whispers spread of sabotage, of factions plotting to ensure the human didn't leave the tournament alive. And in the shadowy halls of the arena's lower levels, a far more dangerous plot was beginning to take shape. Late one night, as Alex worked alone in his workshop, he heard a faint noise, a whisper of movement in the shadows. He turned, his instincts on high alert. The glow of his workstation illuminated the dim space, casting long shadows across the walls. "Who's there?" Alex called out, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. From the darkness, 3 Sindar warriors emerged. Their insectoid bodies gleamed like polished obsidian, and their multifaceted eyes glowed a faint red. The Sindar were known for their ruthlessness and their obsession with military dominance. Alex had seen their kind before, cold, calculating, and utterly without mercy. "You've disrupted the balance," one of them said, its voice a mechanical hiss. "Your presence threatens our projections. You will not leave this tournament alive." Alex's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Funny. I don't remember inviting you to my workshop." The Sindar charged, their bladed limbs cutting through the air with deadly precision. Alex grabbed his helmet, slipping it on just as the first strike came. The Sindar's blade glanced off his chest plate with a metallic screech, leaving no mark. "You should have brought better tools," Alex said, raising his shield to block another attack. "This old thing's tougher than it looks." The fight was brutal, the Sindar's speed and coordination pushing Alex to his limits, but his armor held, deflecting every strike. When one of the warriors lunged, Alex sidestepped and slammed his gauntleted fist into its abdomen, crumpling its exoskeleton. The other 2 fell soon after, their bodies sprawled lifeless on the workshop floor. Alex leaned against his workbench, catching his breath. "Guess I'll be upgrading the security around here," he muttered. But his mind was already racing. The Sindar didn't act without reason, and their presence here meant one thing: the stakes were far higher than he'd realized. The next morning, Alex stood at the center of the arena as the Sindar attack was announced to the crowd. Whispers spread like wildfire among the gathered warriors and spectators. The Sindar Dominion's interference was unprecedented, an open act of defiance against the rules of the tournament. Delegates from other factions debated what this breach meant, but the warriors spoke of something simpler: the human survival. Haldrex stomped toward Alex, his crimson scales glinting under the arena lights. "You survived an assassination attempt by the Sindar," he said, his gravelly voice tinged with disbelief. "Even the finest Creac warriors would struggle against a coordinated strike. And yet, here you stand." Alex shrugged, tapping a soot mark on his armor. "They had numbers. I had better metal. Guess who won?" The crowd rippled with approving laughter, but the tension wasn't fully lifted. The Sindar's brazen act had shifted the tournament's tone from rivalry to something darker. It was no longer just a contest, it was a proving ground for something larger, a battlefield for ideologies and alliances. And Alex was at the center of it. The Council of Proving convened later that day, their towering holographic forms projected above the arena's main hall. Delegates from the galaxy's most influential species argued over the Sindar's actions, their voices overlapping in chaotic bursts. "This is not just an attack on a participant," roared a Jurian delegate, his amphibian features contorted in anger. "It is an attack on the integrity of the tournament itself." Integrity countered a pale-skinned Vorn delegate, his elongated fingers steepled before him. "The humans' victories have disrupted the balance of this competition. Perhaps the Sindar acted out of justified concern." Alex, standing before the council with his helmet tucked under one arm, couldn't hold his tongue any longer. Justified concern? "They sent an assassination squad because I built a better suit of armor." "That's not concern, it's cowardice." The room fell silent at Alex's words, the council members staring down at him. Even Haldrex, standing nearby as a witness, gave a low rumble of approval. A tall, insectoid figure stepped forward from the shadow. Xyler, the Sindar's official representative. Its segmented body gleamed like polished obsidian, and its multifaceted eyes reflected the light in eerie patterns. Its voice, sharp and mechanical, carried a chilling authority. "You mistake our actions for desperation," Human Xyler said. "They are strategy. Your presence has destabilized centuries of equilibrium. Your armor is a dangerous anomaly, one that threatens the careful balance we have cultivated. It must be neutralized." Alex met Xyler's unblinking gaze with a sharp grin. "Funny thing about balance, it doesn't take much to tip the scales." Xyler's antennae twitched, a subtle sign of irritation. "You misunderstand. This tournament is no longer about proving strength. It is about proving dominance. And the Sindar do not lose." The council, reluctant to escalate tensions further, agreed to one final contest to settle the matter, a battlefield simulation. Alex, representing humanity, would face a Sindar strike force in a war game scenario. If Alex won, it would prove the viability of his primitive technology and solidify humanity's place as a respected power in the galaxy. If he lost, the Sindar would take it as a declaration of their superiority and humanity's methods would be dismissed as a fluke. Haldrex found Alex preparing for the simulation in his workshop later that evening. The Creac warlord's 6 arms were folded, his expression unreadable as he watched Alex tinker with his armor. "You are not obligated to fight," Haldrex said. "Many here would understand if you refused. The Sindar are not honorable opponents." Alex didn't look up. "You think I'm worried about the Sindar?" "No," Haldrex said after a moment. "But I think you should be." Alex finally turned to face him, his grin lopsided but resolute. "I didn't come here to bow out when things got tough. The Sindar think they're invincible. Someone has to remind them they're not." Haldrex's lips curved into what might have been a smile. "Then you will have my support. A Creac does not abandon a worthy adversary." The battlefield simulation took place in a massive arena, transformed into a sprawling war zone complete with ruined structures, defensive emplacements, and shifting terrain. The Sindar strike force, numbering a dozen elite soldiers, was outfitted with cutting-edge weapons and armor. Their sleek forms moved in perfect synchronization, their hive-mind coordination making them a nearly unstoppable force. Alex, on the other hand, stood alone in the center of the arena. His armor gleamed in the artificial sunlight, its unassuming design a stark contrast to the Sindar's technological sophistication. The audience held their breath as the countdown began. When the signal to start rang out, the Sindar moved as one, their weapons unleashing a barrage of plasma fire. Alex dove behind a collapsed wall, the bolts exploding harmlessly against his armor. He knew he couldn't outgun them or match their speed. He had to rely on strategy. Using the terrain to his advantage, Alex lured the Sindar into narrow corridors and tight spaces where their coordination faltered. He set traps using the environment, collapsing walls and triggering chain reactions that disrupted their formations. His armor's resilience allowed him to charge through their fire, closing the distance and engaging them in close combat where their long-range weapons were useless. One by one, the Sindar fell. Alex's longsword, heavy and unassuming, shattered their advanced armor with brutal precision. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the humans systematically dismantled the Sindar's seemingly invincible strike force. By the end of the simulation, Alex stood alone on the battlefield, his armor dented but intact. The Sindar lay scattered around him, their weapons disabled, their pride shattered. The crowd erupted into deafening cheers, their chants of human, echoing across the arena. Sylar, watching from the council chamber, said nothing. Its multifaceted eyes reflected the broken remains of its soldiers as it turned and walked away. Haldrex approached Alex as the human removed his helmet, his face slick with sweat but triumphant. The Creac warlord clapped a heavy hand on Alex's shoulder. "You've done more than win a battle, human. You've shaken the galaxy." Alex laughed, exhaustion creeping into his voice. Not bad for a guy in tin-can armor. The Sindar retreated from the tournament, their defeat marking a turning point in galactic politics. Humanity's resilience and ingenuity, once dismissed, now commanded respect. Delegates from across the galaxy sought alliances with Earth, eager to learn from the species that had defied the odds. For Alex, the victory was personal but not without consequence. He returned to Earth a hero, his name celebrated across the stars. But he knew this was only the beginning. The Sindar wouldn't forget, and neither would the galaxy. In his workshop, Alex began work on his next project, a suit of armor that would build on the lessons he'd learned. It was a symbol of humanity's unyielding spirit, a promise that no matter how advanced the galaxy became, there would always be room for innovation. Months after the tournament, the galaxy had shifted in ways few could have predicted. The Sindar Dominion's retreat from the tournament of proving sent shockwaves through the interstellar community. Their reputation as an invincible force, bolstered by centuries of technological dominance, was now in question. Warriors from across the galaxy began rethinking their approach to combat, and Alex Carter's name became synonymous with a new era of ingenuity and adaptability. But Alex's life didn't settle into the quiet triumph of a job well done. If anything, his victory had painted a target on his back. One quiet evening in his workshop on Earth, Alex adjusted the settings on a new gauntlet prototype. His old suit, battle-scarred and still proudly displayed on a nearby stand, had served him well, but he wasn't one to rest on past accomplishments. Always room for improvement, he muttered to himself, tightening a bolt. The new design was sleeker, lighter, and incorporated alien materials he'd traded for during the tournament. But as he worked, his mind lingered on something Haldrex had said during their last conversation. The Sindar will not forget this. The thought barely had time to take root when a sharp alarm blared throughout his workshop. Alex froze, glancing at the monitors lining the walls. One screen showed Earth's orbital defense network coming online as an unauthorized ship breached the system. Its signature was unmistakable: Sindar. Figures, Alex muttered, grabbing his helmet. The Sindar ship, a massive vessel bristling with weaponry, appeared in orbit above Earth like a storm cloud on a sunny day. Its arrival plunged global communication networks into chaos. Alarms blared as Earth's defenses scrambled to respond. But before the military could mount a proper counterattack, a transmission cut through the noise. Sylar's cold, mechanical voice echoed across every channel. "People of Earth, we have no quarrel with your kind. Surrender Alex Carter, and this will end without bloodshed. Defy us, and we will bring devastation to your world." The demand sent a wave of panic rippling across Earth's governments. But the response from humanity was swift and unanimous. From leaders to civilians, a single message was broadcast back: we do not bow to bullies. Alex, watching the situation unfold from his workshop, couldn't help but grin. Now that's the Earth I know. Earth's response left the Sindar no choice but to escalate. A fleet of smaller assault ships deployed from the mothership, descending into the atmosphere with frightening precision. Their target was clear: Alex's workshop. But what the Sindar hadn't counted on was that Alex had been preparing for something like this ever since the tournament. As the first assault team touched down, they were met not by Alex, but by a series of automated defenses. Turrets crafted from alien alloys fired projectiles designed to pierce Sindar armor. Drones hovered overhead, unleashing electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the invaders' hive-mind coordination. The Sindar advanced, but their cohesion faltered as Alex's traps turned their precision into chaos. From the shadows, Alex emerged in his new suit. Sleek and battle-ready, it retained the medieval aesthetics of his old armor, but incorporated improvements he'd developed with help from alien allies. The chest plate was reinforced with a Rylock crystalline weave, the joints were lined with adaptive ceramics, and the gauntlets pulsed faintly with Creac kinetic dampeners. As the Sindar turned their glowing red eyes toward him, Alex raised his sword, its blade now glowing faintly with a plasma edge. "Round 2, he said with a grin. "Let's see what you've learned." The battle that followed was fierce, stretching across the countryside as Sindar forces tried to overwhelm Alex, but they hadn't anticipated the human resistance. Inspired by Alex's triumph at the tournament, humanity had spent months preparing. Soldiers clad in bastion armor, designed using Alex's principles, joined the fight, their resilience turning the tide. Civilians armed with improvised weapons set traps, proving that human ingenuity extended far beyond Alex's workshop. Haldrex arrived midway through the battle, leading a small fleet of Creac ships. "I told you, human," he rumbled as his forces provided air support. "A Creac does not abandon a worthy adversary." General Varkin's Rigel Accord fleet followed soon after, their cannons tearing through Sindar assault ships. The Sindar, unprepared for such a coordinated resistance, found themselves caught in a war they hadn't planned for. But the true turning point came when Alex boarded the Sindar mothership. With Haldrex and Varkon providing cover, Alex breached the Sindar flagship. The corridors of the massive vessel were eerily silent, the hive-mind soldiers operating with mechanical precision. But Alex moved with equal determination, his armor absorbing each plasma blast as he carved a path toward the ship's core. At the heart of the vessel, he found Xylar waiting. The Sindar leader's sleek form was clad in experimental armor, bristling with glowing conduits that pulsed with alien energy. Its voice was calm but laced with disdain. You cannot win, human. For every step you take forward, we evolve. You are an anomaly, but anomalies are meant to be corrected. Alex raised his sword, his stance unwavering. Corrections overrated. Let me show you what persistence looks like. The duel was brutal. Sylar's armor, equipped with advanced shielding and energy-based weaponry, forced Alex to adapt on the fly. But where Sylar relied on raw technological power, Alex relied on experience, grit, and his armor's clever design. Each blow he struck chipped away at Sylar's confidence, the Sindar leader growing visibly frustrated as its weapons failed to incapacitate him. Finally, Alex saw his opening. With a calculated swing, his plasma-edged sword sliced through Sylar's armor, disabling its power core. The Sindar leader collapsed to its knees, sparks and smoke rising from its broken frame. "You've lost," Alex said, his voice steady. "Pull your forces back, or I'll finish this." Sylar's multifaceted eyes flickered, its voice faltering. You have disrupted perfection." "That's kind of my thing," Alex replied. With Sylar defeated, the Sindar forces withdrew. Their retreat marked a turning point in galactic history. The Dominion's once unshakable dominance was broken, and Earth emerged as a symbol of resilience and innovation. Back on the ground, Alex stood among his allies, his battered armor gleaming in the light of the setting sun. Haldrex clapped a massive hand on his shoulder. "You've done more than fight a battle, human. You've inspired a galaxy." General Varkon nodded. "The Sindar will think twice before testing humanity again. You've shown them and us that strength isn't just about technology, it's about spirit." Alex smiled, though exhaustion weighed heavy on him. "I didn't do it alone. Earth has plenty of spirit, and so do all of you." In the weeks that followed, Alex returned to his workshop, determined to continue his work. The galaxy was watching now, and he knew that humanity's journey was just beginning. But as he stood before his battered suit of armor, a thought struck him. "Not bad for a primitive design," he murmured with a chuckle. And with that, he turned back to his tools, ready to build the future.